Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Ballpark, this time right outside of Charles Schwab Field Ballpark at one of those must-hit destinations during the Men's College World Series. You look so humble as I say this, too. I'm Christina Engdahl here smack in the middle of the series, and like always, Rocco's is ground zero. You can hear it behind us for the madness. This time, we're going behind the bar, and not just for a tally update, but to talk about the chaos of this community and what it's like to host the wildest fan tradition in college baseball. So joining me, what a full circle moment too. I have with me Pat McAvoy, manager at Rocco's. He's blushing. Thanks for making time for me. And you made it so easy to set this up too. Such an angel.
Well, I owed you for years and years and years of helping me out and making me look good when I needed to.
That's correct. And that is not an easy job.
It is almost impossible. So it's, I'm glad that I could finally help.
So we're only really scratching the surface of making good on our debts, but I appreciate you making the time.
I'm doing my best.
And even we set this up for like a Wednesday afternoon where I thought, it shouldn't be so chaotic. It should be a little bit slower, but not the case. It still is. Is it just this busy all the time, all series long?
It is something every day that you, even if you plan for it, it comes out of nowhere. Like I can set 32 alarms for something and then it's like, oh yeah, never mind, we have to move this to here, and then this happens, and then we don't get cups today, and then all of a sudden we don't have lemonade, and then all of a sudden like everything just stacks onto each other and everything just gets pushed back or moved around, and it becomes incredibly chaotic, and it's just living in that chaos.
That's what I always, even working at the ballpark for those years, there was just something that you could not have anticipated that happens every single year with this event. And you know, of course, you're having 24,000 people in the ballpark, and a lot of them, either before or after, spill out and find their way over here. So I imagine that chaos just continues right outside of those walls.
Yeah, I mean, the game lets out, and it's just you can just see out of gate two, just a river, just an Elkhorn river of people coming towards you, just slowly and maybe half drunkenly, and just really like having a great time.
And they're ready for Jell-O Shot.
And they're ready for Jell-O Shot.
Yeah, and so on that note, a few things I want to ask you about in this episode too. First, I'm curious what the atmosphere has been like this week, and you know, how does it compare to previous years? It seems like you have the Jell-O Shot contenders are stronger than ever with LSU back in the fold.
Yeah, so we just did the noon update, and we're ahead of the pace from last year, which was overall total pace. Okay. LSU a little behind their record 68,888 pace, but we are ahead of the overall total, which is what matters to us because that's the donation total at the end of the day. So about 6,000, I think, ahead of what we did last year. So that's again 6,000. Crazy. Some $9,000 more dollars than we will donate, and we're just going to try to build on that year over year, and so that makes a big difference. The atmosphere's been great. The LSU fans are awesome. They're passionate. But the Arkansas fans were great. Omaha embraced Murray State in such a way that's really cool.
The Cinderella team always seems to become the Omaha.
Absolutely. Yeah. Coastal was that in 16, obviously, and then you have Murray State this year with their really awesome story. So. And still, people are still putting it on Murray State, which is great because I can't imagine. I don't know this because I have not contacted the food bank at Murray State yet. Mm-hmm. Neither is Kevin and Bonnie, the owners, the ones that actually give the donations. Yeah. But I can't imagine that food pantry receives very large gifts at any one point in time. So, right now where they're sitting at, $7,000 to their food pantry is probably going to mean quite a bit to them.
No kidding. Yeah, that'll go a long ways too. And we'll get into the whole backstory of the community giving back and kind of how that came to be. Even though I know you've told this story, I still think it's one that's worth sharing and resharing again. But is there a moment as you get into the series that you switch the flip from busy bar to we've entered Jell-O Shot history era? When do you feel that wave kind of come upon you?
I don't think of it like that. I guess I don't know that there's ever a time where I'm like it, because it's all such a whirlwind during these like 10 days or 12 days that I don't ever feel like, oh, this is like now it's getting big. Like you kind of forget what it is because it's such a chaotic moment for a couple of days that you kind of, for every year you're like, oh man, last year felt busier. You don't realize how busy you are in the moment. Right. And so there's never a point where I'm always thinking like, oh, I feel like last year. And then I look at the numbers. I'm like, oh no, we're up 6,000 shots. So you're always looking back through lenses that you didn't have at the time. So it's a real hindsight 2020 thing, but it's also a thing where like, you're just caught up in it and you just ride the wave until you're done.
Right. Exactly. And then probably in that last day, you just collapse.
Oh, absolutely.
and
Just curl up in a ball. Yeah.
And hope not to look at Jell-O for like another year if you can.
Yeah, I mean,
manage it.
yeah, and then like inevitably someone will be like, "Hey, we're throwing a party and we have Jell-O shots for you," and it's like, "Thank you,
Oh, please.
oh, thank you."
Anything but that. Yeah.
Uh,
But I'm sure you find it in your heart to still take them up on it too.
obviously, yeah. I'm a man of the people. Everyone knows that.
Everybody knows that about you. The mayor of North Downtown Omaha. What's something that people don't understand or maybe misunderstand about what it takes into making this whole thing happen year after year?
A lot of things at once. I think the misconception of like dispelling the rumors is always a thing. Like people are like, oh, they're just like, this is just such a cash grab, and they don't realize the charitable aspect of it. People are like, oh, this is so easy because all they're doing is making these 10-cent Jell-O things, and it's like, no, we're not. I'm not grounding horse hooves in the back to make gelatin. So, like, that's not really what we're about. Like, we literally have a company that supplied us with, a new company this year that supplied us with 120,000 Jell-O shots that we think we might need to fulfill the year. And it's just, like, all the people that are involved in it, everybody obviously knows Kevin, the owner, and Bonnie, his wife, the ones that are doing the donations. They know me because I do these interviews with beautiful people like you, obviously.
Yes.
But there's so many other people involved. Dorian, our guy that owns Jell-O Shots, he's been here every day and working really hard. We have a staff. We literally build an entire section of the bar that is just the Jell-O Shot bar.
Right behind us. Yeah.
And so it's like we have to do all of these things to do it right. There's all these little things, and there's always these new problems that arise, and you're always thinking on your feet. But the amount of just in totality, like, Kevin and I are the face of this thing, but there's 600 people that have touched these Jell-O shots and then gone through this thing, and all the little details that go in behind it is what makes it cool and what makes it special and what makes it really sort of that tradition that can keep sustaining itself.
Yeah, and you want it to be something that people continue to cherish and can be beloved too. And it goes into exactly what you said, just making sure that every piece of it is done right and responsibly. Even because at the end of the day, of course, it's Jell-O shots, but there's so much more that goes into it, that it means so much more to these communities as well as to Omaha. So what you've built is obviously something very special, and you want that to go on as such.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. And we try not to, like, every time someone says, oh, you know what I think you should do, it's like, oh,
we've tried it.
Here we go. Yeah, like we've thought about it. We've done, everybody has.
It's working. It's because it's by design.
Exactly. The only two people I take advice from about this thing that are outside of the bar are my two sisters, because they are far smarter than me.
At least you know it. Yeah.
In every aspect of life. One of them is a marketing genius, and one of them is my pragmatic anchor that is like, nope, that's a dumb idea because of this. So Aaron and Lisa, big shout out. I love you both. But they're the only ones that really kind of understand how this thing was built and how it was born. And they keep me humble and keep me grounded and being like, hey, you don't need to do this. You don't need to do this. You don't need to do this. Keep this thing as simple as possible. That's what makes it cool. As soon as you try to squeeze more out of an idea, that's when it starts to get a little like wretched. It starts to get a little like, oh, that guy's a tryhard. That this thing was cool until, like, we still have the same $40 whiteboard, and I get a marker every year to write on the board. It's the same thing over and over.
The marker is the new investment.
Yeah. Every year it's like Kevin gifts me with a new marker, and he's like, oh,
the simple new opening of the marker.
Exactly. Yeah. So no, that's what makes it cool, is that we can build a new bar, and we can get a new company that does it better, and we can do all those things to make it smoother and make it a more linear experience, but not doing too much to the actual, hey, we're selling Jell-O shots, at $5, we're giving $1.50 from each to charities both local and outside the community, and that's what makes it cool, is that we don't really mess with that too much.
Yeah, exactly. It's a simple model, and it works for a reason.
Yeah.
But have you had at all this series any just like holy cow moments, anything that struck you as unusual, or is it just the same crowds looking for the same Jell-O shots every year? I can't believe that's true, but
it's funny because, again, we had Paul Skeens, Cy Young winner Paul Skeens, and Livy Dunn come in the other day with Todd Graves from Raising Cane's and some other guys.
Yeah.
And it's one of those moments where I'm setting all of this up on the back end, and we know it's going to be a big deal because we know everyone's going to try to mob them, and they have their own security, and we get them in, and we're having fun. And they're like, hey, I'm about to do the board update, and someone says, hey, Paul, do you want to do it? And Paul's like, yeah, I'll do it, and like I had no idea, and I was like, because no one's ever updated the board, like me and Tucker, Tucker Colchett, who manages the bar as well, like he and I are the only ones that have ever updated it. So Paul's like, yeah, I'll do it. I was like, cool, Paul Skeens is going to update the board. And so I sat there and I read the numbers to him. And in the moment you're doing a job, and then you look back on the moment and you're like, man, that was a really weird day at the office. You know what I mean? Like, and so that was cool. And again, Livy and Paul were so gracious and so awesome. Livy handed me $1,000 in cash and said, Paul wants to buy shots for everybody in the bar. So like, here's a K, like go pass out 200 shots to any LSU fans in the bar.
Obviously, I was going to ask what kind of shots, but the answer's obvious.
The Jell-O shots, obviously.
Yeah, it's LSU shots, yeah.
Yeah, and then obviously Todd Graves is like the most kind and awesome human being. He's worth like, $19 billion, but he's still like wearing a plain white t-shirt and hanging out and is like the most everyman of all time and was really gracious to us when we went down to Baton Rouge. And so it was really cool to see him again and hang out with him because he is just like, he's a guy that you would want to like sit around and watch football on a Sunday with or something like that, or like go to a game and like grab a beer and a dog with. Like he's the most just like humble dude and awesome dude, but really sharp, really smart guy. So like seeing those people is like otherworldly to me, but it's otherworldly after the fact. It's not otherworldly in the moment because you're just there then.
Because it's all happening around you at the same time. I mean, is it lost on you that Rocco's is now kind of in association with the College World Series, becoming a little bit of a celebrity hangout, a must-be place to be seen?
It's funny. Yeah, it's funny to me because I don't like I never want to think of it that way. Because once you think of it that way, or once you like sort of like get that in your head, then you start acting different. And I don't ever want to act different. I never go into a bar, like anywhere we go, I'm never like, I'm the Jell-O Shot guy, or like I'm at the Jell-O Shot bar. Like that's not the identity.
You don't have like a sash, a crown.
Yeah, I don't.
Surprised by that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Yeah, I have not gotten the full
humble
chest
for as long
piece.
as I've known you, Pat.
Yeah, I haven't got the full chest piece tattoo yet, but
give it time.
Yeah, give it time. But so when these people show up, they are as happy to be in the bar and part of the experience as we are to have them. Yeah. And that's what's cool is the relationships have grown and built. Like, Pete Burns from ESPN SEC, he's been here every year, and he was kind of one of the early adopters of touting the Jell-O Shot Challenge on like through some social media stuff. And so he comes every year, and I would say that like, if I went to Charlotte where Pete's from, like I could probably crash on his couch if I needed to at this point in time, because Pete and I think are like legitimately friends. And that's a weird thing to have happen.
You've been through it. Yeah, exactly.
Through Jell-O, you know what I mean? And so it's a weird, those are the weird connections you make. And the fame of the person is awesome, and I try to not let that affect anything. But it is still kind of cool, like to say that, oh yeah, I've met this person, and I know Clinton Yates is as argumentative off TV as he is on. We'll be over at the trap room hanging out and just chopping it up about like the 1992 Braves or something like that. He's as competitive there. But it's fun to talk to some of those people that you've only ever seen on TV or read their articles or read about them. So it's cool to talk to those people and realize that they're like normal human beings that like have their own personalities, and they're not these like larger than life figures.
Yeah, and it's funny that all these relationships, friendships are built on a foundation of Jell-O. Who knew? And speaking of
the strongest of all foundations,
I was going to say, really,
Jell-O.
You can't ask for a stronger one. But speaking of the Jell-O shots, of course, the thing that kind of brings fans to Rocco's every year. Who's showing up big this year? Are there any surprises at this point?
No, not really. I mean, obviously, the Arkansas fans we knew would put up a fight, and they're in second place right now. Okay. LSU is going to show up regardless. Like, they're competitive about drinking. They're not even competitive about like baseball. Like, I mean, they care about the baseball.
Something we can understand.
Yeah, they compare themselves to themselves and no others. So we knew they'd show up. The Murray State story, like I said, is really cool.
Yeah.
And it was, but that was, I mean, there was true to life Murray State fans, but it was mostly Omaha people. The Coastal fans, like actual Conway Coastal fans, have shown up, and they're really good people. Like there's not 100,000 of them, but everyone that we've met has been a really good person, which has been cool too.
On that note, would you say that there's any one school that has like a really strategic fan base, and maybe they're not here this year, or is there a fan base that's more chaotic than others that you observe?
Everybody sort of has their own very specific set of like personalities, right? So in 21, we had the Mississippi State crowd in here,
Yep.
and they were rowdy and banging their cowbells, and they were like fighting each other just for fun, not even for like, they weren't even getting aggressive with other teams. They were just like throwing each other through windows for a good time.
Yeah.
And so that's like a very specific mentality. And then the next year you had Ole Miss, and they brought their own, like, they were all very polite. They were all like very old school Southern money polite.
Manners,
You know what I
yep,
mean? Yeah.
exactly.
So they were
Sir,
polite, but then they get a little too tuned up, and then it's like, do you know who my dad is when we're kicking them out? That's the problem. You run into them with them. Like every fan base has their own very specific set of like
peaks and valleys.
Yeah, like the strengths and weaknesses of every team. So it's and that's kind of funny to see that happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's like, oh, never really realized that this fan base was going to be like this.
Precisely. Yeah. Have you ever seen a fan base just kind of rally together to just with the intention of blocking someone's climb on the leaderboard? I mean, it's one of those things where they're like, oh, everyone hates the winner. As you see LSU climb, you probably have some people looking around like, what if our powers combined, we stop them?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And there are fan bases that are pretty well hated in college baseball. And it, like the SEC is like SEC above all else, but then they're also like, they also hate very specific schools within their conferences more than other ones.
Yes, because of rivalries,
Yeah, and so it is a specific thing where like you see a fan base come in, and it's like last year, for example, when it was all ACC and SEC teams, you would see fans be like, all right, well, we're not going to win, so I'm going to jump on a horse to try to beat, to try to get the ACC to beat the SEC, or hey, I know that my school is doing poorly, but we can't have Tennessee win, so I'm going to jump on, So you do see that a lot where teams literally are like, okay, like I'm gonna throw my weight behind someone else, like my squad's done or my squad's not in it, and I don't want this school X school to win, so I gotta run the other way.
Yeah. Even as teams are eliminated, do people continue to support? I'm thinking of Murray State specifically, again, because Omaha loves to embrace the Cinderella team, so I'm curious if they continue.
They definitely will, and again, I hope they do, because people are like, so many times when I'm back at the Jell-O Shot bar slinging Jell-O,
as you do, as one does. Yep.
Yeah, we there's so many times where people are like, we know it doesn't matter because LSU is going to win it, and I'm like, well, it still does matter, because $1 is still going to that on-campus food bank from every shot sold. So like, if you buy, if you keep buying from Murray State, that's just more money to their on-campus food bank. Sure. And I think that's what, like, kind of it gets lost in it a little bit sometimes, is that every shot is still meaningful.
Yeah.
Omaha people will come up and they're like, well, we don't really care because, like, we just want to participate. We don't even know what 8 teams are in the tournament. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so we still make them pick a team because it's meaningful for that school when they get the check at the end of all this. And so we think that's what's neat about it.
Did you ever think that this cause that was your brainchild, that your collective brainchild, would start garnering like national headlines? It's on ESPN. I mean, it's talked about nationally in this way where, you just had this little idea that you might do this nice thing and maybe make a little money in the meantime, but truly it's taken on a life of its own.
Yeah, I had no idea, and I'm not a huge social media person, and so when I started the Twitter for it, I was like, cool.
Started the Twitters.
So I started.
Yeah, you don't got to prove that you're not a social media guy.
I created a Twitter account for the
www.twitter.com.
Yeah. Josh Gear was my first follow on Twitter. Our main man, Josh Gear, a good friend of both of ours, and he was my first follow. I had 17 followers on Monday, and I had like 17,000 by the end of the week. And I was like, wow, like I didn't know what 17,000 followers meant, but people were like, that's actually kind of a lot of followers for like something that's this like inane, And so I was like, okay, well, that's cool. And now it's like up to 50 or 60 or something. And that's like, people care. But again, people care because they're competitive.
Of course.
And some people care because they want to hate me or hate Rocco's and hate what we're doing here. But most people care because of what Kevin and Bonnie did and made it a charitable event. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's what's the most meaningful out of the whole thing, is that it's become larger than, I came up with the idea, and in the early days before it was Jell-O, when it was just random shots in a cup, every team color, every team had a different, flavor. It was just that, and it would be a couple hundred at a time, and no social media, nothing. Yeah. We couldn't do social media then because they all had like kind of risque names, because we just had like sort of like awesome like backhanded innuendo names for the Jell-O Shots. So and so it wasn't anything big. It was just fun and funny.
Yeah.
Like people would, the menus we would print were like a take-home collectible from the series. Like, hey, I went and did the shot challenge and got a menu. So, but now, after Kevin took over in 19, when he bought the space and started Rocco's, and he asked me how to do it, and he started the Jell-O Shot challenge. That's what I always say is like, it was my idea. Kevin made it Jell-O, made it better. I made it better when I started the accounts for it, the social media accounts for it.
Yeah.
Kevin made it better when him and Bonnie decided to do the donations. Kevin made it better again when he decided, hey, we're gonna build a whole room for the thing. We decorated the room with the top 8 all time, with the bats from Marucci, with the checks, with everything. So we just kind of, like I said, just keep building on it to keep making it more. If people are gonna keep telling us that we are a part of the thing, then we want to make it as cool as possible for a fan to come in, be able to see the plaques, be able to see the bats, to be able to see the board, to be able to see the checks, be able to see like everything that has gone into this throughout the years.
Right. Yeah. I mean, because the College World Series is kind of like a protected tradition in Omaha now too, and so to be such an integral part of it, it's not a responsibility to be taken lightly. And I was going to ask, maybe some of the biggest changes you've seen from year one to now, but maybe it is that exact like buttoning up that you described that makes it hold on to that longevity that keeps people coming back for more.
Yeah, it used to be that like if someone, like there was one year early on that Arkansas wasn't here and they wanted to buy a bunch of shots, so I literally put a piece of tape up with like Arkansas on it, and it's like, you just say like, you let them join because they want to buy a bunch of shots or whatever. And now it's like, no, you can't do that, because then all of a sudden it's going to be like, some dude from Wisconsin who hasn't had a baseball team since 1990 is going to be like, hey, I want to buy 100,000 on Wisconsin. You know what I mean? And then you're going to have 50 names on the board, and it's not going to be cool. Like, you need to keep it to the 8 teams. Like, we used to try to do, we used to try to play around with it a little bit more and like have a little bit more fun on the socials and like, kind of incite riots and amongst the fans on the social medias. Like we used to chirp a little bit more, but now it's like, we don't need to do any of that. We don't need to be clever. We don't need to be cute. We just need to present the thing as it is and let the thing be cool on its own. I'm not cool. You've known me.
Never have been.
Forever.
I know, but at least
you know that I'm not cool.
Yeah.
But the thing that we created here is cool. And so we gotta let it be cool on its own and not try to make it more cool.
Yeah, what you built is undeniably cool, and there's a lot of people from around the country who would tend to agree. What does it take to get right for this couple of weeks? Obviously, the ordering of Jell-O, I imagine, is one on the list, but I know there's a lot of behind-the-scenes work that goes into just making sure that you're ready for hundreds of fans to come in here throughout the course of 2 weeks.
Yeah, it definitely, at the end of the night, every night, I come back and I count how many Jell-O, because there's the 4 flavors this year. Jell-O Shot's our partner of the 4 main flavors. And so I go through and I look at what we sold today. I look at, every day, day over day.
Mm-hmm.
I look at what we've sold, year over year. I look at past years when teams were here that weren't here last year.
Sure.
And so it literally is just me looking like the scene from, A Beautiful Mind, where I just have like Jell-O Shot numbers.
Connecting it.
Yeah, everywhere in it, every day. We try to get up to about 18,000 in-house before we even, that way we know we're not going to run out. Or we hope, we hope we run.
Crossed. I was going to say,
we hope we run out every day.
This crowd,
Exactly.
Yeah.
We hope we run out every day. But the behind the scenes stuff is not a lot of sleep, quite a bit of Red Bull, a lot of Jell-O, a lot of cough drops. I mean, that's really what drives the whole thing. Yeah, and just and doing interviews with old friends like you. I mean, this is what.
Yeah, it's what you live for.
Yeah, on my day off, this is what makes my day. Is coming down here and doing this for you.
Yeah. Well, what else would you be doing?
Exactly.
Honestly,
well, sleeping, but no one needs to do that. I mean, come on.
Yeah, that would just kind of throw off the vibes, because suddenly you'd be rested, and no, we can't have that. So everyone knows by now, going back to what you've mentioned, is that part of the proceeds for the Jell-O Shot Challenge goes back to charity. Has that changed the tone of how you do things at all?
Yeah, and it not necessarily the tone of how we do things, but it definitely changed. I mean, it changed the tone of the overall event.
Yeah.
And a lot of the big name guys, the Todd Graves, the Shane Morrisons, the Gordon McKernans, the guys that came in and bought a large quantity.
Yep.
We had to tell them, hey, listen, we can't physically give you this many. The Liquor Commission would shut us down the next day.
Yeah, we have to think about that.
Like we have to think about all that stuff. And those guys know. Those guys own enough things that they understand. They've been through the process enough times that they realize, like, okay, cool. If you can give us 100 every couple of hours, and we pass out 1,000 a day, and LSU fans get to consume them, great. And we don't care about the other ones. We want, we want the money to go to charity, and we want the number on the board. And that's what really matters to them.
Yeah. And especially when, you're in the thick of it, it's hard to see exactly what's going on around you until, like you said, a little bit of space. But do you ever see fans lean in specifically because it goes, part of these proceeds go back to charity?
Yeah, all those big money guys would have never come in without it. Like they like it, they like the idea, they like the exposure, but they wouldn't have done it if it wasn't a charitable donation. And there's plenty of people like that come back, and you're working, you're selling the Jell-O, and they're saying, like, specifically, they're like, thank you so much for what you guys are doing. We get a lot of thank yous from the fans that are here. We get a lot of thank you for the fans online. There was a article today, or maybe yesterday, that came out. There's a retirement home in Baton Rouge that did or maybe New Orleans, but they did a mini Jell-O Shot challenge between their four.
That's great.
And so they had it, and they like made up a little board that looks just like ours with the 4 living units, and they all had their Jell-O shots, and they raised like $1,254 or something like that for Greater Baton Rouge Food Bank. And they actually had a winner, and so we posted about it today. And a lady, we reshared the article, and a lady, a resident of this retiree community, literally sends us a video of her doing the Jell-O shot and says, "I did it," and it's like the most adorable thing of all time.
People, exactly.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what's cool about it too, is that what we're doing hopefully spurs other people to create things that are going for a good cause.
Yeah, that's what. And remind us the breakdown too. Again, of course, there's the piece. There's a piece that stays in Omaha. There's a piece that goes to.
Yeah, so $1 from every shot goes to that school's on-campus food bank. So the year,
Awesome.
LSU did $68,888. They got $68,888 to their food bank, and then 50 cents from all shots total stays in Omaha. So 2 years ago was Heartland Food Bank. Last year, Kevin and Bonnie split it up between the on-campus food banks of UNO, Creighton, and Iowa Western Community College. So they all got. It was like 48. So they all got about $16,000, a little over $16,000 a piece for their food bank. And the food banks reach out, and they don't tell them that they're getting the money. They just, like, someone just opens a random envelope and it's a check. Yeah, and so the outpouring of support that you hear from them, and we're able to do this, and we're able to expand this way, and they kind of not all of them, but a lot of them tell us how they're using the money, and you get to just see the tangible difference it makes. And again, this year it's extra special. Some of them have already reached out to us and been like, "Hey, we're rooting for you. It's been a really bad year for us with some of the USDA cuts and everything. They're hurting. They got a leg chopped out from underneath them, and so it's really been difficult. And so we're hoping for a good year, because we know that some of these places they're counting on this thing to keep going, to keep thriving.
Yeah, especially in some of those communities, like you said, maybe not CWS regulars or not super familiar with what it is that happens with the Jell-O Shot Challenge. I'm sure it's going to make a hugely significant difference because they would not have anticipated this charitable giving coming in.
Exactly.
Wow. Yeah. So let's talk numbers. Speaking of the Jell-O Shot Challenge, where do we stand today? I think you gave an update, but do you see anybody pulling ahead? Do you see just like the remaining strong?
Yeah, LSU is they're considerably ahead of everybody. It would take a pretty Herculean effort, especially if LSU makes the championship. It would be nearly impossible to catch them at this point in time. So it would take some really wild stuff to have happen for them to lose this thing. We are ahead of the overall numbers from last year, and that's what we want to see. Is we don't want to see an LSU runaway. We'd rather see a bunch of schools still in it and still thriving, because that's what the competition is, what makes it cool. And again, everyone kind of knows at this point in time that LSU has built such a insurmountable lead that it's going to be tough. But we're still hoping that everybody gets in the spirit of things, and that's the thing is. No one's coming back and saying, "Oh, I'm not doing it because LSU is winning." Everyone's like, "Hey, I did my part." Like everyone wants to come back and I'm 21 and I want to buy 10 shots because I've been wanting to do this for the last 3 years, or I'm 80 years old and this is my first Jell-O shot I've ever done in my life, but I'm doing it to support the Hogs. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter who it is. Like, they're coming back and they feel like they're a part of the thing, and they are, and that's what we think is really cool, is like just seeing those individuals and how different they are and how different their motivation is, but then all wanting to be a part of it.
What's the over-under on how long your staff can keep doing this? I mean, everybody, for as ragged as you've been run. Everybody's walking around and working with a smile on their face. I mean,
our staff is incredible. This is one of the best ones we've had. I mean, we've had a lot of really good staffs throughout the years, but and we try to do it right. We try to, our day people are our day people, our night people are our night people. We kind of prep everybody. We say we're going to give you, anywhere from 1 to 3 days where you're off or on call. So we'll rest you a little bit. Everyone gets to make money, but everybody kind of knows their schedule and knows the ins and outs. And you're going to have this to do every day and this to do every day. And so, but we try to prep everybody really well. And even some of the new people that that have been with us only like a month, we get them in before the Big Ten tournament, and we get them, that gives them a little bit of insight as to what it's going to be like when it's crazy in here. But we try to take care of them all year. There's a lot of tabs that Kevin and Bonnie buy to just to kind of maintain that camaraderie, and we're all close, we're all friends, and that's what really helpful too. It's not something where we're leaving and we're leaving. Like we're leaving, when we close down on a night in February, we're all going next door to Lefties and seeing those guys because, those are our coworkers too, and we're all drinking and eating and having a good time together. So the fact that there's that camaraderie helps a lot, for certain to keep up morale, and just the fact that we've set expectations pretty well and said, hey, this is like, I know it's going to be a party. You don't want the party to be a part of the next day. And so you got to make sure that, if you want to go out, make sure you go out when you have the next morning off or when you have the next night, make sure. And so
knowledge that only comes with age, Pat, I fear.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We had to learn the hard way so you could pass that wisdom along. Do you think there was ever a time where this endeavor isn't part of what happens at Rocco's, or do you think it's forever? I know the future's hard to see, but is it forever part of Rocco's DNA?
I think it's forever part of Rocco's DNA. It's one of those things that, because it's a charitable event, it has to keep continuing because of the good it does. You know what I mean? Maybe there'll be years where it's thinner, and maybe years that it's fatter. Maybe you get a year where it's all West Coast teams that don't travel as well. And it's just the Omaha people, and the numbers aren't as big, and that'd be unfortunate for the charities and for everybody. But eventually those years will hit, but it will still do it because it's still a good thing. Even if we aren't selling 100,000 Jell-O shots, it's still going for a good cause. So you still want the thing to continue. And we'll keep doing it. And again, we'll keep doing it as right as we know how to do it. The new Jell-O Shot company, those guys are really cool, and they actually want to expand a little bit on the Rocco's on the road idea. So we've done events in Fayetteville and in Baton Rouge where we went on the road and raised money.
Cool,
and so we raised money for Parker Pagnazzi charity down in Northwest Arkansas, which is an underprivileged youth baseball charity. We partnered with Foghorns down there and did a one weekend Jell-O Shot thing for regionals a couple years ago. Last year we partnered with Fred's in Baton Rouge, and we raffled off the replica of one of the Marucci bats that they spin us every year for the championship, and we sold Jell-O Shots down there for a weekend and raised another almost $7,000 down there for the Greater Baton Rouge Food Bank. So,
oh my gosh,
the Jell-O Shot guys really like that aspect of it too. So they want to sort of expand the Rocco's on the road. I know they've got some connections up in Sturgis and up in all these different places, and they want to do, they want to see that charitable aspect, sort of move across the country and see if it's sustainable, see if people will do shots for charity elsewhere. You know what I mean? Is kind of the idea, and send us up there and let us have fun and tell the story and say, hey, we're here to party, but ultimately we're here to try to raise money for charity as well.
Right. Yeah, you're about to be a national Jell-O celebrity if you keep this up. I don't know if you knew that you're creating this reputation for yourself, but I don't know if you're going to be able to help it before too long. Taking this show on the road like you have. Is there already a story from this year that's already going in your forever memory file, do you think?
There's a couple that are that maybe are not appropriate for a present company. You are such a lady, so
yes,
I'm not going to.
Thank you for not offending my sensitivities.
Yeah, absolutely. But there are a couple. But I would say that just having Paul and Livy and
cool.
how cool and kind they were is probably the number one thing. But there's a lot of people that we've met. There's a lot of individual stories that you hear. There's a man from Arkansas I think he's 91 or 92. His name is, I don't know his real name. I only know him as Birdman. And I've only ever known him as Birdman for as long as I've known him. And he's
obviously been coming here for years.
He's an Arkansas super fan. And he calls the hogs. He leads the hog call at least once a day.
It's an important job.
And he actually, unfortunately, he's staying here. He brought his trailer and his truck up here. and his generator started on fire and he lost everything. Like, yeah. And so the hotel put him up, and a lot of the Arkansas people were like coming to his aid. And the manager of Foghorns, who knows him well too, actually started to GoFundMe for him. And so like, it's one of those things that like, I didn't know this for 2 days, because Birdman would come in and he'd see me every day and big smiles and happy to see me and give me a hug. And I'm like, and then I find out and I'm like, Birdman, you okay, dude? He's like, Pat, everything will be all right. You know what I mean? He's like, I'm at the College World Series, everything's going to be all right. And so like, there's these stories that like are tragic, but it's also one of those things that he's here and that's what makes him happy. And so it's like, that's what he's holding on to. That's really cool to me. And that's really like, it gives you a lot of perspective when you're looking back at it.
Yeah. And especially after these things happen, and the first place he wanders is over to Rocco's to see people that have become, that were strangers years ago are now close friends. That,
exactly. Yeah.
Wow. Really incredible. Pat, thank you so much for your time. I know you're slammed, so I appreciate you carving out any amount of minutes to chat with me. But is there any place that people can go? You've mentioned it, I think, a couple times, social media, where people can go to follow the Jell-O Shot Challenge, see how things are going? Yeah,
so you can follow on X, you can follow at CWS Shotboard, the same handle on Instagram. You can follow the Rocco's and Lefty's social media pages. The updates are done by me and my good friend Cooper Bowman. We do them 3 times a day, and we post a lot of the other content as well. And we're pretty we're pretty across the board on all the updates, but there's some other like fun things you can do. So yeah, go follow us there and keep checking us out. Yeah, and maybe don't, if you see Pat in public, maybe don't offer him a Jell-O shot. Maybe not. Maybe just a shot of Jameson. Maybe just I was gonna say you keep it traditional. Thanks again, Pat, for all the inside scoops, for taking time during another crazy College World Series, and giving us a glimpse into the chaos. And for you listening, continue to follow Hurrdat 1 for all your Beyond the Ballpark content, this series and more.